Hey guys, welcome back. Thanks for watching. I've got a cold start video for you here today, but kind of a teaser for some stuff I've got in the works. I've got a hydraulic oil video coming up where I'm going to talk about off-brands a little bit. And then I'm also going to do an antifreeze flush. I'll talk about that a little bit in a future video. So if you're interested in stuff like that, please subscribe and stay tuned because they'll be coming here in the next couple weeks probably. All right, so one topic for today is Massey cold start. So a couple weeks back, I did a video showing the magnetic heater, and I did a bunch of temperature measurements. And I'll put a link to that up at the top of the screen right now. So if you're interested in just seeing the raw data on how much warmer the engine got after, I think it was 1 hour and then maybe 2 hours on the magnetic heater, take a look at that video. But ultimately what matters is, did the engine start better with the magnetic heater? And I think the answer should be obvious. A little heat isn't going to hurt, but just how much better does it get? So I've got two comparisons here for you. I'm going to show you, then I'm going to show you a really cold start. So first up here, I've got air temp, 37.5 degrees Fahrenheit versus 38 degrees Fahrenheit. So here's that comparison right now. Okay, so, I mean, that's really hard to tell, right? So now let's look, let me shift over here. Now let's look at these two starts individually and tell me if you see the difference. Okay, so I could tell a difference. I mean, the with heater start definitely was a little bit smoother, and just some timings here. So I did 6.5 seconds on position 1 and 8 to 9 seconds on position 2 for both of those starts. Now that's not exactly what's recommended in the manual. So section 3.9.3 of the manual for cold start says hold position 1. This is the fuel pump clicking position, not the glow plug position. It says hold that position for 10 to 30 seconds and then glow plugs 5 to 7. So if you go online, you'll see most guys run glow plugs in cold weather longer than 5 to 7 seconds. Now, granted, 38 degrees Fahrenheit is like barely cold weather. Like cold weather is of course below freezing. So I don't think many people are going to be holding glow plugs for 30 seconds on a 38 degree startup. But anyway, so I did it kind of to the manual, but maybe even shorting it a little bit. And I got thinking about, like, why are they recommending 10 to 30 seconds in position 1? And the only thing I can think is that in cold weather, the fuel, well, eventually gels a little bit if you get super cold. So maybe it thickens a little bit at cold temperatures, like before it actually gels. And you can see it cloudy sometimes. So maybe they're thinking the fuel pump position kind of pushes that thicker fuel through. So it's getting fuel so it can start. That's all I can think. The other thing I think some guys were thinking is that the manual has it backwards, and they mean to preheat the engine for 10 to 30 seconds. So they mean to say position 2 instead of position 1. And all I can say to that is I have my user manual that I got in 2020 that's dated 2018. that says only 5 to 7 seconds on the glow plugs, even in cold weather. But you can question that, but the new manual, so dated April 2022, this is a soft copy manual, says the same thing. So that's what it says. I'm not, in an argument about, what's right or what's wrong. I'm just relaying what I have seen in both of those manuals as being the recommendation from Massey. So now let's get on to a real cold start. So those 37.5 and 38 degrees, they were relatively stable, kind of on the rise, I think, for one, but pretty stable temperatures in like that upper 30, 39, maybe touching on 40-degree range, both of those days. So what that means is that the air temp I'm telling you at the time of startup is about the same air temp that the block was at, and all of the tractor components. So more recently, I did a true cold start. So what was that? That was a situation where the air temp might have been 29.2, but the engine block temp was 12 Fahrenheit. 12 degree, it was actually down to like 11, I think, here that day. So 11 degrees Fahrenheit, but by the time I got to it, 12 degrees. I put the block heater on, so I did the block heater on the engine oil pan, and the heat lamp on the transmission for 2 hours, a solid 2 hours. So during that period of time, I brought the block up from 12 to 19. Now, granted, the air temperature was 29, so that contributed to the increase some, but it was still really cold. It takes a lot of energy to heat that metal up, even though 7 degrees. So I brought it up from 12 Fahrenheit to 19, and the transmission's a little harder to read, but near where I had the heat lamp placed, it increased up to 40.1, I believe is the number. Yeah, 40.1 at the end of that 2 hours. So those are the conditions. Here's the startup. Okay, so that was a little rough, but that was a really cold start. So I was pretty happy with that, and I do think the magnetic heater made a difference. It was kind of weird though. It seemed like it started to crank and then it just stopped. It wasn't clicking, it wasn't doing anything. It's almost like I didn't have enough juice in the battery to turn it over. At those temps. So, but then once it like cycled, like, once, the starter cranked it like once, then it went. Now you did probably notice the RPM gauge went crazy there for a while and just, flung up to 3,000 and back. But I think it stabilized out pretty quickly. So I did have the battery tender. I have like a crappy Harbor Freight battery tender, so maybe it's not the best. So maybe I need to look at that. But I did have that battery tender on the battery the entire night before I attempted this startup. So the battery should have been pretty strong. Now, one thing, I guess the only other point for comparison is the first year I had the tractor, I tried to start it up at like upper 20s temperature, and it was a rough start. It was not, I was worried. I'll be honest, I was worried. So this start, I think, seemed a lot better than even that start the first year I had it. So that's some information on you, or for you, about whether a block heater is really helping. I think if I lived maybe in like Minnesota or North Dakota or Canada, really cold temperature, keeping it inside, and the magnetic heater, I'd maybe get the factory block heater, try that out and see if that's better. But for my climate, like that 12 degrees, that was pretty cold. Normally, if it's 12 degrees here, we are not getting snow. Our snow normally happens in the 20-degree range, maybe even hovering around freezing, 30, 32. Oh, and I also checked, before I tried all of this, I checked the fuel filter. I'll show you a picture here. And I looked in the gas tank just to make sure the fuel wasn't gelled at those temps. And it was not. Everything looked A-okay before I even attempted to start. All right, so there you have it. That's about all I'm going to get probably out of this winter. I haven't pushed snow, and I'm probably jinxing myself right now. But I haven't moved snow at all this year. I don't even have the chains on the tractor right now. It's just been a very mild temperature-wise winter. And snow, we've had a trace a couple times, and that's been about it. So we still do have quite a bit of February ahead of us, but the 2-week outlook isn't looking good, and that's going to take us almost into March. But sometimes we will get the March snows. But all right, so thank you for watching. If you have any questions, post them in the comments. If you have experience with these cold starts in the magnetic heater, or you've seen your tractor act like mine did on the startup, post it in the comments. I'd like to see that, and I want to learn from others what you have experienced on these cold start scenarios, because this is all new to me, and all I'm doing is collecting data and reporting it out and showing you guys what I've got. I might throw a tip in here and there, but I'm always looking forward to hearing what you have to say. So thank you for watching, and take care.